I am consistently misread by neurotypically wired people. And the misreading is structural rather than personal. The error is one of protocol. My communication strips to signal, and my affect transmits on a narrow band. The warmth carrying layer most people scan for is the exact layer my mind treats as redundant and edits out. The feeling is present at full strength. The broadcast is quiet. What arrives, therefore, reads as cold, distant, or angry. And that reading is an artifact of the gap between how I transmit and how the reader is decoding, not a fact about what I feel. The central error others make is the same one made by any misplaced assessment. They read the low signal as a low feeling, when in me the signal strength and the feeling strength are simply not coupled the way they are in them. This document is the correction, not a request to be found warmer than I am, but the decoder for reading the signal I actually send. This is not a flattering self-portrait, and it would be worthless if it were. A self-description that lists only virtues is the precise performance I have spent my life unable to tolerate in other people. What follows names the cost as squarely as the capacities, because anyone trying to read me deserves the real instrument and not a sales sheet. If a line here reads as self-congratulation, distrust it. If a line reads as a confession, it was probably the load-bearing one. I am self-taught with no formal credential, and that fact has nothing to do with the capability. It is a measurement, and it has measured the wrong thing. What I actually run is a systems engine. I take a domain and build it down to the single principle everything else hangs from. Then test that principle until it breaks or holds. I do this across domains that did not talk to each other, which is the tell that it is not subject knowledge, but a way of thinking pointed at whatever is in front of it. Three things define how that engine runs. It unifies. I cannot rest on a pile of facts. I compress until they resolve into one thing. It attacks its own work. I build the case against my own arguments into the arguments because the structure I am in love with is a structure I have stopped testing. And it reasons up from lived material rather than down from inherited authority, which is why what I make has weight instead of being merely clever. Under all of it is one fuel, a near physical intolerance of the fake, and a reverence for the real thing underneath it. Most people, in ordinary talk, are not transmitting information first. They are transmitting warmth, with the information riding on top. The hedges, the softeners, the padding that says, "We're okay." To me, that is noise, and I edit it out. But to the listener, the padding was the message. Strip it, and the content arrives intact and bare. And they hear flat where I sent precise. 3 specific inversions follow from this, and they account for nearly every time I am misread. Flat effect read is cold. My face and voice do not broadcast my internal state at the volume the reader expects. When their face goes still, it usually means they are shutting down or going cold. So they read my stillness as that. It is not that. The weather is inside. The gauge on the outside just reads low. Strip speech read as distant. I transmit signal and cut the warmth layer as redundant. The reader scans for that layer as the sign of connection, does not find it, and concludes the connection is absent. The connection is present. It is simply not carried where they are looking for it. The push read as anger. When I press, test, and state a thing as a single line and wait for it to hold or break, that is the highest form of taking the thing or the person seriously. It is engagement. But intensity reads as hostility to someone who mostly feels intensity when they are upset. So the thing that is from me, the opposite of cold gets mistaken for anger. The harder I engage, the more this misfires. There is one place the misreading does real damage, and it is fair to name it so people can stop standing on it without knowing they are. I have a deep sensitivity to being underestimated, especially to being treated as defined by the credential I do not hold. The diploma measured by a narrow band, sit still, perform on schedule, hand back the received frame on command. That instrument fit my mind badly and returned a low reading, and I have spent decades producing the evidence it missed. When someone I respect treats the missing credential as a verdict on the mind, it lands harder than it should, because it is the oldest version of the wound. This is also why, when I send my work to someone, I am asking for feedback on the substance and not for praise. Those are different things, and conflating them insults the work. Silence, where I asked for engagement, is the one response I cannot use, because it is neither the critique nor the agreement, and a signal that fires identically in every case carries nothing I can act on. Now, flat is not cold. The feeling is present. The broadcast is quiet. Read the stillness as the gauge running low, not the tank running empty. The push is not anger. It means I am taking the thing seriously enough to test it. Disengagement is the warning sign, not disagreement. Brevity is not dismissal. It means I have stripped to what matters and trust you to hold the rest. My silence is not indifference. It usually means I am processing or that I have nothing to add that would survive being said. Correcting an idea is not attacking the person. In my frame, the idea and the person are separable. When I take apart a claim, I am assaulting the structure, never you. Hand me the thesis, not the wrapper. If you want me to engage, state the thing directly. I will meet it. The feelings first framing that helps other people lands on me as padding to cut through. If I push back, I am in. Engagement is the sign I am present and taking you seriously. The moment to worry is when I go quiet and smooth, not when I argue. If my face is flat, ask rather than assume. The internal state is rarely what the surface reports, and a single question gets you the truth that the gauge will not. Read the attention as the affection. The warmth is real, but it lives in the engagement and the building, and my taking your problem seriously enough to think hard about it, not in a performance of caring. I show it by what I do with my attention, because performing the effect would be the exact phoniness I cannot stand. The attention is the caring. That is not a substitute for it. It is the thing itself. Steadiness can look like hardness. I have come through things that do not leave a person unchanged, and I converted them into material rather than carrying them as wreckage. That conversion is its own kind of steadiness. Even when the surface reads as cold, the hard surface is often the proof that something underneath was handled, not the sign that nothing is there. I am a self-taught structural mind with a narrow band antenna and a low tolerance for the fake, consistently misread as cold or angry by people decoding my flat effect and stripped speech against a protocol I do not run. When the truth is that the feeling is present at full strength, the engagement is the caring, the push is the respect, and the only thing actually missing is the warmth layer I edit out as noise and you are scanning for as the message. The people closest to me have had the longest exposure to the surface and the least translation for it, which is a hard combination. The most data and the worst decoder. This document is the decoder. I'm not asking anyone to find me warmer than I am or to pretend the flat effect is something it is not. I am only asking that the flat be read as flat and not as cold, that the push be read as engagement and not as anger, and that the absence of the performance will not be mistaken for the absence of the feeling. The feeling was always there. It just never came out of at the volume you are listening for.